system. We looked at the upper respiratory tract, which consisted of the nasal cavity, the pharynx or the throat, right? And then the larynx, which is that sort of switching mechanism for swallowing, so that air, the normal pathway of least resistance, as long as the larynx is open, is for air to move into the oral cavity, through the throat, and down into the trachea, which would then take it into the lower respiratory tract, right? The trachea, the bronchi, bronchioles, things like that, into those alveoli. When you swallow, so that food doesn't get down in there, the larynx raises, muscles pull up on the larynx, the epiglottis closes over the glottis, the opening to the trachea, and food gets diverted over the epiglottis into the esophagus. So once you're down into that larynx and the trachea, that's considered the lower respiratory tract. Now, all of those places are just conducting passageways until you get to the alveoli, which are these microscopic little pockets, and that's where gas exchange takes place, right? The whole point, really, of the evolution of the respiratory system is for gas exchange, to provide oxygen to cells so that they can do cellular respiration, and to remove carbon dioxide from the body as the waste product of cellular respiration. So the whole purpose of respiratory systems is simply that, is to allow for that gas exchange. Because we live, I don't mean we, but humans, live in a dry environment, terrestrial environment on land, we need to have the respiratory membranes internal in the body, places where gas exchange can occur. Because diffusion, which is a mechanism of gas exchange, is more efficient across warm, moist surfaces. So if our respiratory membranes, like a fish, the gills, right, were external and exposed to the air, they'd be very dry, and this gas exchange would not occur very well. So we move the respiratory membranes internally in the body. The respiratory system is really evolved as just an outpocketing or a part of the digestive system, if you look at the evolution of it. And it's internal in the body. So we need to get air from the outside into the body, and that's called ventilation. So really, for us to do this gas exchange, which is the whole purpose, we have to move air. That's ventilation. That's a different set of physiology that allows for the movement of air in and out of the lungs. Here we're just talking about what is the mechanism of inspiration, that's inhaling, and the mechanism of expiration, exhale. That just moves air continually across the respiratory membrane. Once air is moving across the respiratory membrane, we do gas exchange. Okay? And that's simply also, that's pretty straightforward too. That's just diffusion. Gases, like any solute, will move from an area of high concentration toward an area of low concentration. The difference is the measurement of concentration for a gas is its pressure, right? Partial pressure, if it's a mixture. Rather than moles and things like that, we're going to talk about pressure. They're directly proportional to each other. The more moles there are of a gas, the higher the concentration of a gas in a mixture, the higher its pressure, so it will contribute to a concentration grade. But we'll chat a little bit about that. So we'll be talking about some gas laws from chemistry or physics class that you might have done. What are they called? Like Dalton's law of partial pressure. It's really just common sense, really. Henry's law of dissolution, which talks about different molecules having the ability to dissolve differently in water. So those two will be important for gas exchange. For ventilation, we'll be talking about really it's just a physical function called Boyle's law, which is the pressure and volume being inversely proportional in a closed container. So that's pretty straightforward. So if we can get an idea, an understanding a little bit of the physiochemistry of it, it's going to be pretty straightforward.